Hello everyone, welcome in SC300 Microsoft Identity and Access Administrator Day 3 session. My name is Saurabh Srivastava and we are discussing about SC300 since last 2 days. Today is day 3 and we have interesting topic to cover today. Let's see what we have in our agenda. Today we are going to cover implement access management for applications. And here we'll cover these two main topics, plan and design the integration of enterprise applications for single sign-on, and implement and monitor the integration of enterprise applications. These are two main topics that we'll cover. So let's start with the first one, plan and design the integration of enterprise applications for SSO. So here we talk about some interesting topic here that is mainly moving around what kind of options we have for deploying or basically discovering applications by using MDCA or ADFS app report. Then we have second topic, configure app connectors in MDCA. Basically, MDCA stands for Microsoft Defender for Cloud Application. Or you can say Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Third is design and implement access management for applications. Then we have topic design and implement app management rules. Next is configure pre-integrated gallery SaaS application and implement and manage policies for OAuth apps in MDCA. These are different topics that we will cover one by one. So first of all, when we talk about discover applications by using MDCA or ADFS app report, let's see what we get in this. So first of all, what is CASB and Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps and MDCA? So here, CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker. This is a kind of security tool that sits between cloud application and the user. And this is going to detect, this is going to check what kind of traffic is being shared between user and application. And this interject enterprise security policies before the cloud-based resource is accessed. So this is interesting that this is something sits in between and protect your application from any kind of malicious access, unauthorized access, and different kind of abnormal behavior. Now this CASB capability we have in MDCA in Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Formerly, it was known as Cloud App Security. Now, so this MDCA is Microsoft's own implementation of this CASB, and this gives you all the capabilities what you see in CASB inside this Defender product. So what different options we have here, what different things we see, let's talk about. So MDCA, this gives you different kind of capabilities. This gives you shadow IT discovery, where we can find and manage cloud applications. I'll show you how we do it. This MDCA also implements, or you can say this applies your information protection, DLP policies, especially on sensitive data. So this protects your information as it travels. This gives you threat protection. This is looking for abnormal behavior on user activities, and this protects your application from these kind of abnormal and unusual behaviors. Also, this will check your application against regulatory requirements. This checks the compliance and gives information about if the applications are safe or not. These are different kind of capabilities we see in MDCA, what we have in Microsoft Defender product. So where you find it, what kind of options we have, I'll talk about. So first thing, where you find this MDCA, let's talk about. So here, if I go to my trial tenant, here we have Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And in this, we have this security admin center. And this is actually known as Microsoft Defender XDR. Let me open it. So this is Microsoft Defender portal where we have lots of capabilities. All the security related components, security related features you can configure here in this. Mainly here you get 4 type of Defender components. Defender for identity, Defender for endpoint, Defender for email and collaboration, or you can say Defender for Office 365, and then Defender for cloud apps. These are 4 main components what we see here. And these are listed here in this. This is representing Defender for identity, Defender for endpoint, Defender for email and collaboration, that is Defender for Office 365, and Defender for cloud apps. So here we are talking about this Defender for cloud apps in this. So we see here this Defender for cloud apps where we have different kind of options like cloud discovery, cloud app catalog, OAuth application, activity log, governance log, policies, and many other things. But when you want to configure settings related to these cloud applications, we get these settings available under System, and then Settings tab. And here we get Cloud Apps related settings. Still loading. So you can see we have different settings here related to this Defender for cloud apps. Starting from About, My Account, AI Agent, Cloud Discovery, Connected Applications, Information Protection, Conditional Access App Control, and App Governance. These are different kind of capabilities what we see in Microsoft Defender for Cloud and that we can configure. We'll talk about what different kind of options here we have that we can configure and we can use. So this is something that what we see in Microsoft Defender for Cloud App settings. So let's see. So Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, that is your CASB solution, Cloud Access Security Broker solution. This gives you different kind of deployment methods. You can collect logs from your on-premises firewall and proxy, because on-prem firewall and proxy, they are involved in web traffic. So you can export their logs and you can upload these logs here in Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps to analyze it. And accordingly, like if you see some applications are not safe, so you can block them. You can mark them as unsanctioned. Also, you can connect applications which are already there in Defender for Cloud Apps using their API connectors. So you can perform real-time monitoring for these connected applications. And this CASB, or this Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, this can also work as reverse proxy for conditional access app control. These are different capabilities. And based on this, you decide that how you want to use Defender for Cloud Apps or how you want to deploy this. So here, different kind of options we have. I'll show you how we configure these settings. And once you configure these, you will get rich visibility, data control, sophisticated analytics, and identification of cyber threats. These are all different kind of capabilities you see once you have this CASB configured, this Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps configured. Now let's talk about if we go for the first thing, that is log collection. So for log collection, here we have option that we can go for snapshot report. I can click on snapshot report. And here I can create a new snapshot report that I can upload here. And that report or that log I have already exported from my firewall or proxy devices in my on-prem. By default, if you notice, here we have a dummy report already there for this learning. That is from Cisco Iron port. So I can click on this Ready tab to see this report information. This you can also access if you are in cloud applications. Click on Cloud Discovery. You can see if you have any report uploaded that you can analyze. So when you upload any report from any device, this will be coming under this kind of format. This says in the Cisco Iron port log, we detected 283 applications, 1,828 IP addresses, 457 users, and 2.9 GB upload and download data, that traffic. You can also see the app category, especially cloud storage is being used a lot. Risk levels, you can see here what we have. Also, top entities or top users, and which all applications are being used a lot. These are information you can find it here. Now, this looks good, but here, if I want to know which all applications are not safe, so for that, I can click on View All Applications here. Now here in this, Microsoft is containing information about more than 35 plus applications in the catalog. And these all applications are categorized in different kind of risk category based on what scores they have achieved. Every application score is in between 0 to 10. And this depends on 4 main components. If you expand this, what kind of general information is available for that application? If nothing is hidden, you get 10 points for this application. What security standard is being followed by this application? What compliance standard is being followed by this application, and what legal standard is being followed by this application? If everything is up to the level, application will get the 10 score. It means this application is very safe, and this can be used in your organization if you want. But I can see out of these 253 applications, if I want to see which all applications I have between 0 to 3 scoring. Now here, I can see we have different applications here which are not safe because they are getting very low score. So for example, this one, if you expand, you see in general information, lots of things are missing. No disaster recovery plan we have in this application. Security standards are missing mainly. Compliance standards are almost 0, and legal standard is almost 0. That's why this application is getting very low score. So using it means you may be using a risky application. So when you get these kind of reports from your firewall or proxy, you export that log and then you analyze it here. So if you have these kind of applications which are not safe. So in this case, what you can do, you can simply mark this application as unsanctioned. Now you notice if you mark the application as unsanctioned, so if your devices, if these are managed by Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, this Defender for Endpoint will enforce this application restriction. It means user will not be allowed to access that application. But in this case, Defender for Cloud Apps and Defender for Endpoint integrations are needed. So we go for this option. I can click on Save, and this application will be marked as unsanctioned. Definitely, I can go for bulk selection here. I can mark many and many applications together as unsanctioned if I want. But I have to keep in mind that Defender for Cloud Apps and Defender for Endpoint, these two should be configured as like they should be integrated to each other. So in this way, I can detect what different kind of applications my company users are using, and I can mark them as unsanctioned if I want. But definitely, I can create new report as well. So that we can configure here in the settings tab in cloud applications. Let's wait for this. Here I'll go to snapshot report. And I can create a snapshot report here. Now in this snapshot report, I will go with next. Report name, for example, test report. Description, test report. Then you have to select appliance, which appliance you are using in your on-prem, and from where you are going to export the data. There are the complete list of the applications what you can use, like Blue Coat, Barracuda, Checkpoint, Milno Security, Cisco, Meraki, Clavister, Content Keeper, Kurata, Dell, Sonic Wall, Digital Arts, ForcePoint, Fortinet, iBoss, OpenSystem, Juniper, McAfee, Microsoft, Palo Alto, Sophos, Squid, Storm Shield Network Security, Bandera, WatchGuard XTM, WebSense, Zscaler, and if nothing is in this list that you're using, so you can go for generic and other source appliance type. Suppose I'm going to use Barracuda Web Application Firewall. So I should export this device log from my on-prem place, and then I can upload it here. So we upload the data. Like first we select here anonymize. If you want to anonymize the user information, in that case, clear usernames will not be visible. Then we go for next. And now this asks, you have to upload data what you have exported. Data should not be more than 1 GB in size, and maximum 90 days of data can be, or activities can be uploaded here. Once you upload, this will be listed like this one here, like Cisco Iron Port, and this will be taking up to 24 hours of time. When this will analyze your traffic, log, and give you result. So you can detect, we can mark the applications as unsanctioned if you want to block applications for my users. So this is the first one, what we see in log collection. Definitely, this is a manual task, but we can automate this process if I'm going to configure automatic log upload. Suppose I'm doing this activity after every 90 days. So for this frequency, I can plan for uploading my firewall or proxy logs directly to Defender for Cloud Apps automatically by configuring a kind of mid-tier component that will be picking the logs and uploading this to Defender for Cloud Apps automatically all the time. So this is something that what we get here in the first one, log collection. What is the next one? That is API connector. So in API connector, we can configure which application I want to connect, where this Defender for Cloud Apps will give you real-time monitoring. So in this, what we have, let me show you. So for this, we go to the connected applications app connector. Now here in this, you can see by default, Microsoft 365 is connected as application. This is a trial tenant, and we have already connected this one as a kind of default setting. But if you want to add any other application, you can add it here. But question is what benefits you get if you are connecting any application here. If application is connected using API, in Defender for Cloud Apps section in activity log, I can detect the activities related to that application, what I have connected as using API. You can see I simply blocked one application here, and this is detected. Login, failed login, and many other activity you can see here. So this is going to be collected here, and we can connect other applications as well in my API connector settings. So I can go for settings tab again, cloud applications. Again, I'll go for this API RApp connector. And you can see if I go for adding other application, so I have this list of applications that I can connect. AWS, Asana, Atlassian, Box, Cisco WebEx, and many others. Definitely, if you're going to add third-party solutions here, you should have proper credentials there. But yes, if any application that is working with this trial tenant credentials, you can add this without any challenge. So I can click on Microsoft Azure that I can connect simply here. Connect. That's it. Now, from this point of time, these Defender for Cloud Apps will also analyze the traffic that is coming towards Microsoft Azure application and gives you the results about that in activity log. So this is something that what we have here in this API connector option. What comes in reverse proxy? You know what happens? Suppose you are going to access any application and there is something like conditional access is configured. What happens? Conditional access is a kind of verification method. But during that time, users or malicious user can send attack. So what we can do, we can send my conditional access traffic even via cloud application. So we'll get a kind of secure mechanism where all my conditional access traffic is going to be analyzed through Defender for Cloud Apps, and this is making the session secure. So generally, we see these three different kind of capabilities here. So first capability, connecting the API using connector. Second is uploading the logs from firewall and proxy here. And third is sending all the conditional access logs, conditional access traffic via cloud application security that is a kind of working as a kind of proxy for your conditional access. These are three main components that we see here in this. Now, so in this Defender for Cloud Apps, we have many different things involved. If any user from any place is trying to access something, some application, and if this Defender for Cloud Apps is there, this will provide you different kind of capabilities. First of all, enabling secure access, endpoint detections and response, threat signal clustering, security analytics and guidance, security posture management, unified endpoint management, and data loss prevention. These all things we see here in this Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. And yes, this ensures that you will have your application access more securely, and you will have all the different kind of security and compliance. Now, moving to the next. So to configure Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps is very easy. You should see this kind of Cloud Apps tab in Microsoft Defender portal, and you will see all these different kind of many options for this. To configure some settings, you can connect to Microsoft Defender for Cloud Settings tab from settings here, and you can come to this Cloud Application Settings tab to configure more advanced settings related to this Defender for Cloud Apps. It's loading. And you can see all these options here we have. Now, so we can definitely discover the applications and we can mark them as unsanctioned. Not only the logs, what we are uploading here that you can see in Cloud Discovery, like you can see a dummy report here that is added here in this trial tenant, and this is from Cisco Iron Port. You can see the applications here, and you can see I marked applications that is something not safe, so I can mark them as unsanctioned if I like to. But we have a very clear view of all these applications, whatever we have in Microsoft Catalog under this Cloud Application Catalog. So here you can see we have more than 35,000 plus items here, and with their risk scoring as well. So with this one, you can be sure that if my company users are going to use any kind of application that is in 10 score, it means that application is safe for organization, for the user. But if any risk score is going to be decreased here, it means there are challenges. So we can come to this place, we can check, and we can also block applications or mark them as unsanctioned in advance if I want. So these kind of different things you see in application capabilities. And yes, this is a kind of old look and feel here that you see. But now we have this kind of new look and feel where you can expand any application and you can see the general score, security, compliance, and legal standards, what this is following. Now, what comes under Active Directory Federation Service? Let's see. In ADFS, definitely ADFS is a very good feature in on-prem Active Directory system that can enable single sign-on for your business applications, for your on-prem environment. So we can configure ADFS for my internal components, internal applications if I want. But if I'm using Microsoft Cloud environment, ADFS can be used as a kind of federated identity provider between Microsoft Intro ID and Active Directory, on-prem Active Directory. It means with the help of ADFS, I can keep authentication localized here in my on-prem and authentication here and authorization in Microsoft Intro ID. So this gives you very good capability actually. You can control your authentication request, authentication things in your on-prem. Definitely, if you want, maybe in case to increase application security, your goal is to have a single set of access control and policies across your on-prem and cloud environment. And in this, Active Directory ADFS system will help you to achieve this kind of security. So it may be possible, like if you are in a hybrid model and you are using ADFS, you have already configured, you have already connected ADFS to your organization intro ID. So ADFS gives you the information about the applications, what you can basically, you can migrate to the cloud and you can use that application properly with intro ID. This you find here in Users and Insights and under ADFS application activity. Like here, if you go to the intro ID, go to Usage and Insights here. And in ADFS application migration, if ADFS is properly connected, you will see that which applications are ready to migrate in your this intro ID environment. But for that, we have to install ADFS Connect Health. This gives information you can download and install, and this gives information about your ADFS environment. So these are different things what we have here. Now, what other options we have? What other discussions here we have? So we're talking about Defender for cloud apps. So we can configure these kind of, we can check the catalog, we can see what different applications are there that we can block. We can mark them as unsanctioned. We can discover the applications, we can upload the log to our Defender for cloud apps from my firewall and proxy, and I can discover which all applications are being used in my organization. Also, we can connect applications using API. So these all informations comes under in this activity log here. Now we can create policies. In policy management, you see different kind of policies are there. These are default policies. Like you have suspicious inbox forwarding or malicious OAuth app consent, ransomware activity has been detected. These are different things we see here. So these are different kind of policy already there, and they will generate alerts. By default, they are not going to block anything, not going to allow anything. They have just only the notification options here. But if I want, if any kind of login from risky IP address is detected, please don't send only the notification, but block the user. So how you do it? You simply go to the settings tab, click on edit policy, and here under governance, you can configure if you want to suspend user from intra side, confirm user compromised, also from M365 side, suspend user. These all kind of actions you can take. You can click on update and your policy will be updated. You can see. Along with notification, this is now also going to perform some actions here, like suspending user. So you can go for these kind of modifications of existing policy, or you can go to the template and you can create your own policy for this Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. So you can use any policy from here. Like you can add this template, you can create policy from this template, by simply click on plus icon and create a policy. These are different benefits what we get in Defender for Cloud Apps. Now let's see some more capabilities what we have in this. So configure connectors to applications in MDCA. We already saw how to connect application connector. Like here we connected Azure. If I go to settings tab again to verify this and cloud apps, I'll go to app connector. And you can see we have Microsoft Azure here is connected properly. It means if there is Azure activity, Azure portal activity, that would be listed here in activity log. Right now, I'm seeing only Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps application related activities here. So this kind of activity you can see here in connector, and you can definitely decide how you want to deal with this. You can create policy from templates to automatically behave on that. So what is an app connector in Defender for Cloud Application? This connects the API provided by the app creator. Definitely all communications are secure, and limitations are throttling, API limits, dynamic time shifting, API windows. These are some kind of common connector API limiting or limits. But there are many application connectors are there, like Microsoft 365, Azure, Atlassian, AWS Box, GitHub, Dropbox, DocuSign, and many other. So these are different kind of connectors available, but for that you should have, like, if you want to connect third-party application, you should have proper ID and password for authentication and authorization. So how App Connector works in MDCA? Defender for Cloud Apps is deployed with system admin privilege to allow full access to all objects in your environment. App Connector flow will be as below listed. Defender for Cloud Apps scans and saves authentication permissions. Defender for Cloud Apps requests the user list. First time the request is done, it may take some time until the scan completes. After the scan is over, Defender for Cloud Apps moves on to the activities and files. As soon as the scan starts, some activities will be available in Defender for Cloud Apps information page. After completion of the user request, Defender for Cloud Apps periodically scans user, groups, activities, and files. So these all informations will be available once a scan is completed. These all things are related to the app connector. Now some more capabilities what we see here in this. So generally there are common services offered by app connector. These connectors are giving you these kind of offerings, like connections may take some time depending on the size of the tenant, the number of users, and the size and number of files that need to be scanned. Depending on the application to which you are connecting, API connection enables the following items. You can see that account information, audit trail, account governance, app permission governance, data scan, and data governance. So API connection will enable all these informations, all these services. If you configure App Connector in your Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps environment. Now, let's see what other discussions we have here in this. Now, when we talk about design and implement access management for application, what we see? So basically in intro ID, we register application. When we register application, application will be using intra ID as a kind of authentication provider. So there are thousands of applications available there in catalog that we can register, and we can use intra ID as a kind of authentication provider for them. So first we have to add application in Microsoft Intra environment, and that we can add here in Microsoft Intra and in app registration. So you can go for all applications here. You can go for new registration if you like to. So adding application, it means we are going to use Intra ID as a kind of token system. This will be providing security for my application. Now here I would like to make one thing very clear. Like if you are a developer and then you are going to generate any code, and that code I'm going to deploy in application service environment in ASC, that is that we are hosting the code in Azure infrastructure. Definitely we have option that we can use Microsoft Intra ID as a kind of provider there as well. But in the backend, even your developer-based application, what you're deploying in application service environment, that is also getting registered in the backend. Without registration, application cannot be easily controlled by these kind of, if you're not registering, you'll not be getting a kind of intra ID authentication and authorization component. So once it's added, you can configure the properties for the application, manage user access to the applications with conditional access policy and single sign-on. So lots of different capabilities you can configure for the applications what you are registering. So here we have a very good exercise in GitHub that you can access, and you can go for adding a new application here. I would like to remind this again. You can find these all labs in GitHub, so you can go for SC300 in GitHub. And here, if you click on this first link, you can see instructions and labs. We'll wait for this. And here we have these different kind of lab activities are there. So you can follow these lab activities. You can complete these using your trial account. Or in case if you have any kind of lab available with you, there you can perform some lab activities, what is already there in that lab instructions. So this lab is there in GitHub. You can use this, you can configure to have more understanding. Now, next is design and implement app management rules. What are these in application registrations? Let's talk about this here. So now you can delegate application registration and management capabilities to my admins. Simply, who can register applications and manage? This we can decide by delegating application access. Definitely, we can assign one or more honors to any application if you want. And if I'm going to assign built-in administrative role that grants access to manage configurations, definitely this is possible here. Also, by creating a custom role, defining specific permissions and assigning it. So you can create custom roles if you want, if in case the existing roles are not sufficient. So what are these? Let's see. If you talk about default built-in, admin application roles. So there are many. We get application administrator role. We also get cloud application administrator role. We have some differences between these two because these are built in, already added by Microsoft. So definitely we will have some kind of differences between these two. Application admin includes the ability to manage all aspects of enterprise applications, including registrations and application proxy settings, where cloud application admin includes the ability to manage most aspects of enterprise applications, but exclude the ability to manage application proxy settings. So these are two different kind of built-in roles, but you can create custom roles if you want. So here you see in the lab in GitHub that what kind of custom roles you can create here. The next is implement and monitor the integration of enterprise applications for SSO. Let's see some more capabilities what we have in this. And this is the second topic in our today's discussion. So when we talk about this, integration of enterprise apps for SSO, there are many topics. Implement token customization, implement and configure consent settings, integrate on on-prem applications by using Microsoft intra-application proxy, integrate custom SaaS applications for SSO, implement application user provisioning. 6.1 is monitoring and audit access sign-on to Microsoft Intro ID integrated enterprise applications. And the last, create and manage application collections. These are different topics that we're going to cover here one by one. Let's see what we have in this. So first of all, implement token customization. What do we have in this? Let's see. Now here, question is, what is a token? What is a claim token? So to understand this, we have to understand that when we configure application registration, and there you are going to use intra ID as a kind of identity provider. So we have some kind of scenario, some kind of design. If example, you have any application, so are you going to add your ID and password there in application, and application will verify your identity because application is maintaining its own identity database? In very traditional or very old time, we were using this kind of behavior. And there the problem was we were maintaining a database along with the application. But if you integrate your application to something like Intro ID, you don't need to maintain a kind of database for user ID and password. In this case, what happens? Suppose a user is accessing any application in your organization, that is application 1. In this case, what happens? User request goes to application 1. Application 1 says, okay, I don't know who you are. And application 1 will be redirecting the connections to Intro ID because we have registered that application in this application registration page. So the user connection will be redirected to Intro ID. Intro ID will ask the ID and password, check your authentication by using MFA. Also, this will check what level of access should be there based on your group membership and what type of user you are. And then Intra ID presents a claim token. That token will include information related to many things like email ID, name, last name, what kind of level of access you have. And that token user session will present to the application. Because application is going to read the token and the token informations. Application understands that this token is coming from intro ID. So based on that token, application will be granted to the user who is requesting it. So token is a mechanism, you can say it's a kind of modern mechanism where this is going to provide you application access without even exposing applications to the without even exposing the credentials to the application. Now, so here we get different types of tokens. Generally, there are three types of tokens, what we see in any kind of application access activity. First is identity token that defines who you are, that user identity. Then we get access token. Access token is something that grants access to your application, to your profile. And then we have refresh token. Refresh token will be presented to the user to check for how long or in how many days the token will be refreshed again. Generally, ID token, access token, these are having the validity of 1 hour. And if you talk about refresh token is having the validity of around 90 days. So these are different kind of things we have. And here under app registration, under token configuration, we can add optional claims along with the default informations, what we get in default kind of claim token, that is name, ID, user ID, and these information. Now, you can add optional claim like customizing the token where you can add more informations inside the token. Doesn't matter as identity token, access token, SAML token for legacy applications, or refresh token. So different kind of tokens you see. You see ID and access tokens and also the refresh token. Generally, access and ID tokens, these are valid for 1 hour. And then you get a token that will be valid for maximum 90 days. Definitely you can configure this option that what would be the refresh token lifetime, and after that, the token will be again refreshed. So this kind of token mechanism here we have when we are going to register applications for using the intra ID as a kind of identity provider. Now, implement and configure consent setting. What is this? Let's talk about what is consent, why we should configure consent. These all things we'll discuss here. So first of all, why consent is important? What is consent? Consent is something, is like a kind of permission that you're granting that what data will be allowed, what data will be presented to any application request. Suppose your users are going to use any application. That application is willing to access the user profile information, user email ID, and user other details. So we can configure consent for the application. What application we are registering, we can configure consent settings. So a user or admin must grant permissions to an application before it can access your company's data, user information, group information, and many others. Users can allow application access to specific informations like a mailbox, but not access to the organization servers. Also, user may not think through ramification of granting access. They just want to use an app to do the tasks. So consent is important. What level of data will be presented to the application is totally depends on what you are going to configure, how you want to configure, how you want to grant the consent for any application. So mainly we configure consent settings for almost every application, that if you want to enable only admin will approve the consent, and that will be working for entire organization. Or you don't want to do not allow user consent, allow user consent for applications, and in the balanced, you can see this here. So consent settings are very important. In every application, we add the consent form, and user will decide, user will approve that what level of access application is looking for. So before an application can access the organization's data, a user must grant the application permissions to do so. All users can consent to the applications for permissions that do not require administrator consent. Also, by allowing users to grant application access to the data, users can acquire useful applications and be productive. These are different options that we have here. Now, so in user consent settings, what we see in user consent settings, we can disable user consent. User can consent to applications from verified publisher. Users can consent to all applications if they want. And custom application consent policy, in case if you want to customize the consent form or consent related to the company's data. So there are many different options in user consent settings. Definitely, you will have some lab activities related to this that you will perform. Now, what comes under on-prem applications, like integrating on-prem applications by using Microsoft intra-application proxy? Let's see what we have in this. So first of all, we have to understand what is application proxy. So basically, application proxy is a kind of feature in cloud that I can use, and we can enable access to the on-premises application. For example, you have one application in on-prem that you are using, and you are not planning to migrate this application to the Azure cloud. But you want to use intra-ID capabilities like a strong authentication, authorization, MFA, conditional access. In this case, with your legacy application, what you have inside your organization, I can publish that application by using application proxy that we deploy in cloud. So this proxy service runs in a cloud and has an app proxy connector running on premises. So there are two components. The main service is running in cloud, and we have a connector. That connector is running in on-prem. And that connector is getting registered to the proxy services in cloud. So in this way, with this kind of design, it securely passes sign-on tokens from intra to the application, where application will be granting the access to the users. So if you want to use modern authentication, definitely you should go for using application proxy for your legacy applications. It's a very good option, actually. So here why application proxy is valuable. This has a great value because this converts, or this basically go for protocol translation. So in intra ID, we are using different kind of authentication methods like OIDC, OAuth, and many other. SAML. In on-prem, we use Kerberos. So if you're using intra ID directly for my legacy application, this is not possible because intra supports a different kind of protocol design, and your legacy application will be using different kind of protocol component. So here, application proxy sits in between. This sits in between where you are going to see a translation that modern authentication will be converted in Kerberos, and Kerberos will be converted in modern authentication type. We also get seamless single sign-on to remove user actions to log into the multiple times. And also this allows applications to stay on-prem. You don't need to migrate them in cloud, but you can access this securely by using the intra ID capabilities. These are wonderful components that we can have. We can see that. Now, so how this looks like, how this works, let's see this flow. Suppose I have application proxy service here in cloud. I have a connector here. I have one application, for example, web server. I have this Active Directory system. Now, suppose if user is requesting this application, because I have published this application via proxy and this is publicly available. So I'm requesting this application, but what happens? First, your connection will be redirected to Microsoft Intro ID to get verified, to get authenticated. Once is done, you get a kind of token here. That token you present to the application proxy service. Application proxy service in cloud will connect with connector, and connector will check the on-prem Active Directory if there is any kind of authentication you have to perform, like in single sign-on, if I want to keep my authentication on-prem. If this is correct, then application proxy will be authorized to access the application. This will get the information and then provide this information or application access to my end user. So this kind of feature we get where I can use application proxy to keep my application in my on-prem without disturbing, and I can still get advanced security like intra ID components. So this is a kind of application proxy is a feature of Microsoft Intro ID that enables user to access on-premises web applications from a remote client. So definitely you can use application proxy for these kind of features, these kind of components. Now, what next we have in this? Let's talk about. So we have exercise in GitHub that you can use to configure your application proxy connector. So if you have a kind of valid license, valid subscription, valid account, you can use that account to configure these kind of labs that is related to add and on-premises applications for remote access through application proxy in Microsoft Intra ID. Now, in other discussion, integrating custom SaaS application for SSO, let's see what kind of components we see here. So we can integrate custom SaaS application So for SSO, like if you're going to use different kind of third-party applications and you want to enable SSO there, definitely we can use Microsoft Intro ID as your identity system for just about any application. Doesn't matter you are going to use your on-prem applications or using third-party applications. So many applications are already pre-configured and can be set up with minimal efforts. These pre-configured applications are published in the Microsoft Intra App Gallery. So these are different kind of components, different kind of benefits you see in Intra ID, what you can configure for your cloud applications. Even you can manually configure most applications for single sign-on if they are not already in the gallery. Microsoft Intro ID provides several SSO options like SAML based SSO and OIDC OpenID Connect based SSO. So definitely here we have some tutorials. That tutorials we see here for this SaaS application integration tutorials. So these are some kind of information that we have. And definitely we get exercise here in your GitHub that is related to troubleshoot SAML single sign-on for custom SaaS applications. So you'll see this lab activity. You'll configure this in your GitHub environment. Or basically you get this steps in GitHub. And if you have ID password, you can configure or you can use this lab to understand what kind of troubleshooting SAML single sign-on or custom SaaS applications, how this works. Now, from labs perspective, you have these two labs, application access policies and implement access management for applications. I believe you will have lab access and that lab access will help you to complete these lab activities here. Now let's see some more thing here in this Microsoft Intra ID, like especially for application registration. So when you go for application registration here, we add new registration. And here we add a front-facing name for my application. Example, my music app. Now here we can configure supported account types. Who can use this application or access this API? I can configure accounts in this organization directory only, accounts in any organization directory, including intra ID and multi-tenant, accounts in any organizational directory, like an intra ID, multi-tenant. This we can use Skype, Xbox, identity we can use, and only enabling personal Microsoft account. These all things we can configure here in this list. By default, the first is selected. Then we configure or redirect URI. Like once intra ID will be authenticating the user and presenting a token to the user, where the user connection will be redirected. So you configure here your application redirection URL. But it's optional, it's not mandatory. You simply click on register. Let's wait for this. And in this way, my music application is listed here with application ID that I need in many places when we are going to configure any kind of interactions or control and administration. Now, once this application is registered, now we have many different options. Like we have token configuration that I was talking about. You can add optional claim. And this claim can be used as individual. This can be used by individual user. But if you want to go for group-based claim, you can go for this option. So in identity, you can select which all informations would be also there. In my ID token, what will be generated by intro ID. Or the similar thing, you'll be able to configure in access. Also, you'll be able to configure similar thing in SAML-based token as well. So this is something related to the token configuration that is important that you can see. Also, I was talking about you can control application management by going for the honor kind of components. Also, roles and administrator roles, you can add this here. So these are different kind of components what we configure in application registrations and what we see in different different cloud apps. These are some interesting topics. And these topics are, you can say, this will be helpful in your exam preparation as well. Because in exam, these topic will have questions like application registration questions would be there a lot and many others. So here definitely you will perform the lab activities and you can see more insights on this. Now, if you talk about what we have covered so far, so we covered plan and design the integration of enterprise applications for single sign-on, implement and monitor the integrations of enterprise applications. These are different kind of topics that we're covering. And we covered how we use Microsoft different of cloud apps, what different options we have there, what kind of components are there in different of cloud apps. Like if you are going to configure any kind of application that you are going to mark as unsanctioned, then that would be blocked by different of endpoint. So just to have this understanding, let me show you if you are going to mark any application as unsanctioned, how different of endpoint will block that application in your devices. Let me show you that integration. This will be, a very good understanding here. So what I was talking about in different of cloud apps, if you go to Cloud App Catalog, you have more than 35,000 plus applications. Think about, I am simply going for maybe configuring the risk score like between 0 to 3. Now here we have lots of applications. Suppose I want to block something here. Suppose I want to block this Cybot. So what do we do? We can select this application. I can simply mark this as unsanctioned. And it says, if you mark this application as unsanctioned, this will be blocked by Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, but configure the integration. How? Let me show you. So you save here first. Now this is marked as unsanctioned. Now We go back to the Defender for Endpoint here. And for this one, we go for the Settings tab in System, in Settings. We go for Endpoint Settings here. And in Advanced Feature, we find it here. If you scroll down, basically Defender for Endpoint is something where we enable integration to many different applications. Because Defender for Endpoint is going to provide signals to many other Defender and Purview products. So we have a lot of integrations here in this Advanced Features tab. Like for example, if you want to integrate this endpoint to Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, enable this integration here. If you're marking any kind of application that would be marked as unsanctioned, so this integration should be on there. Then only Defender for Endpoint will block the applications to your devices. And now to devices, how Defender for Endpoint will know that which device I have to block or which device I have to target for blocking the applications or controlling or providing the security. For that, we have to onboard the device. Onboarding device is very important because if you're not going to onboard devices in your organization or adding your device an endpoint will not be able to control the device, and any kind of security things, any kind of security settings or this Defender for Cloud Apps blocking applications will not work. But definitely, if your devices are onboarded and you have configured your application as unsanctioned, so this integration should be on here in this. Then we have other integrations. Like for example, you can say integration with Microsoft Compliance Center, like sharing these endpoint signals to Microsoft Compliance Center or Microsoft Purview for insider risk management. Insider risk management is a feature that can detect what kind of malicious insider users are there in my company. Malicious insider users are like they are performing some malicious activities like data theft, data leakage, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, so we can detect that. And in this insider risk management, Defender for Endpoint signal may help a lot. So this indication should be on here. Also, because Endpoint is also managing the devices, we have a dedicated device management tool that is MDM or Intune. So we can integrate this endpoint to Intune here using this slider. So we have different kind of integration options, and that we should enable here if I want to basically share the signals, basically share the different kind of capabilities. So these are very, interesting features here. But definitely for that, you should have onboarding options. So in onboarding, let me show something what we get. In onboarding, we can onboard different types of devices in Defender for Endpoint that would be, working here. Defender for Endpoint will protect your device. And also in integration, this will be target for Defender for Cloud Apps, unsanctioned applications. But how we onboard is very easy. First of all, we have to understand what different kind of devices we can onboard in this Defender for Endpoint. There are many. We can see we have Windows 7 Service Pack 1 and 8.1, Windows 10 and 11, Windows Server 2008 R2SP1, Windows Server 2012 R2 and 2016. These kind of Windows Server we can onboard. Windows Server 2019, 2022, and 2025. These also we can onboard here, including Mac, Linux, iOS, Android, and Windows subsystems for Linux. These all are we can onboard if I want. So when you select any series of the device here, you get different methods how you can add these devices in the scene point. So here we have deployment method. In this deployment method, you can see here we have, like, we can download a local script that we can run to my devices manually. And this is good for up to 10 devices. Then we have group policy options. I can use group policy in my on-prem if I want to use it. I can also configure, I can add my devices using Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. It was, you can say, formerly it was known as System Center Configuration Manager. Now we have a new name. Also, we can onboard devices using MDM or Intune, or if I'm using virtual desktop infrastructure, so we can go for VDI onboarding script. In these different ways, we can onboard devices. And once devices are onboarded, they will be listed here in assets and under devices here. So once devices are onboarded, this will not only connect with different of cloud apps, but also this will give you information about what kind of vulnerabilities we have in this kind of devices, what kind of challenges we have in these kind of devices, what kind of issues we have in these kind of devices. So we have different Defender products. These all things, work together and gives you different kind of capabilities. Now, one more thing I would like to add here in my demonstration that will give you more idea about, that was how we can use this Defender for Cloud apps as a kind of proxy for conditional access. What we configure there, how we do it, let me show you. So for this, if we talk about configuring conditional access, so we go for this option here, like in intra ID. In identity protection, we go for risk-based conditional access. For example, I'm going to create a new policy that is maybe, for example, MDCA proxy policy. You can select user, maybe all user or individual, depending on the need. You can select user and groups if you like to. For example, Adele and Alex. Then we go for target resource, which I want to target, where I want to block or allow. I can select all the sources. It means all the cloud applications are selected. Maybe I am going to select only a specific one here, that is maybe Office 365. Now in network configuration, I can configure any trusted location, any trusted IP address if I want. Also in conditions, we have many conditions. If user is at risk, if sign-in activity is at risk, if inside of risk management detections we have there anything, if device platform is there, something like maybe any device platform, if we have there, I can target location, client applications, filter for devices, authentication flows. These all different kind of conditions we can configure in my conditional access policy. But to connect this conditional access behavior, like all the traffic should be going through Defender for Cloud apps, we go for this session and we enable this here. Use conditional access app control, and you can if you want to configure the policy in MDCA in Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, so we use this use custom policy. Definitely, you should configure if you want to allow or block. In access control, I want to grant access with need to change the password, like basically MFA. That should be completed there. Select. Now here we have three options in this policy. Either I can go for report only, this will only generate the data. On means this is enforced, and off means I can keep it off and maybe I will enable it in a change window. So I can go for this option, click on create. Now, once you've created this one, we go back to Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. We go for Settings tab, Cloud Apps. Now, let's wait for the Settings tab here. You can see here we have conditional access app control. So we go for this, and you can configure different settings here like allow access, block access, user monitoring, and device identification. So many different settings. You configure, you create access and session policy here, especially this conditional access policy configure here, access policy or session policy. And then you will be connecting the policy what you have created in your intro ID. So that conditional access policy you connect with this Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps here in this. So these are different kind of combination, how we use it, how we configure it. Now, here in this, I want to discuss one more very important thing that sometimes, it's a confusing point. Like when we talk about tokens, you know that we have token options, right? Now in tokens, we have ID token, access token, and refresh token. ID token, access token, they are by default 1 hour in the default time, and refresh token will be up to 90 days. Now suppose you are accessing any application where you have ID token, access token, or refresh token there. And in case in the backend, admin is going to disable your access to that application, maybe using conditional access policy. In that case, if you will be able to access the application, keep accessing, or this will be immediately blocked. If I block your access to in my organization using the conditional access. In the answer is in traditional way, what happens in traditional way, if you are going to basically see any kind of, if I'm going to apply any conditional access policy to your account, by default, you'll be able to access the application still for next 1 hour or till the time your refresh token is valid. Because when refresh token will try to get the token renewed, then only it will check, okay, that application is no longer available, no longer valid. It means, suppose I have applied a restriction maybe today, 10 a.m. So you will be still able to access the application for a couple of hours without any kind of restrictions. And it's a kind of security flaw, right? So in this case, what options we have? Now here we have a concept of CAE, continuous access evaluation. Basically, CAE is a kind of capability, is a feature in applications, in Microsoft applications, in Microsoft 365 portal, Azure portal. These all are CAE enabled. It means this gives you real-time assessment for any access, what is there. Maybe user is accessing applications. So the platform user is using, if that is CAE enabled, definitely if I apply some kind of policy from backend, what happens, that would be immediately applied to your device, to your profile. And this comes under CAE, continuous access evaluation. There are many places, there are many applications, many services in cloud which are CAE enabled. Or even if you're looking for this capability in your any application that you are, uh, you know, you are developing in your organization, you can ask to your developer, please configure CAE capability in this application. So this will help you to basically, you can say, applying whatever the settings we have in continuous access or any restrictions immediately if there's any change in the backend, instead of waiting for the refresh token time. So these are lots of things that comes in consideration, lots of things comes in picture. So you can read all these informations about all these by simply going to SC300 exam page, go for the first link here. And here you see this self-paced learning option. So here what we're talking about, we are talking about this implement access management for applications. You open it and you see different kind of topics here related to plan and design the integration of enterprise SSO, implement and monitor the integration of enterprise apps for SSO, implement app registration, and register apps using Microsoft Intro ID. So yes, you can go for this kind of online resource where you can definitely go for, enhancing your experience, learning this, and this will help you to prepare your exam. Also, I'll talk about something interesting on very last day, that here we have some practice assessments. Mainly here, you get lots of questions related to the application registrations and management. So I'll explain many things in our last day session in day 5, how to take the practice assessment, what is the sandbox. If you want to prepare your SC300 exam in summary, you can watch these videos. There are 4 video series in this. So I'll talk about all these informations here, all these details in this place in our exam prep session. So definitely there are helpful resources that you can use to prepare for these kind of SC300 components, SC300 topics. Now, so what we have covered today, once again, we covered these 2 topics, plan and design the integration of enterprise applications for single sign-on, and then implement and monitor the integrations of enterprise applications. We only covered these 2 topics because if you talk about this SC300 here, we have many topics in this. So other topics are for your homework activity. So like if you see here, we have this topic, SSO, implement and monitor integration of enterprise SSO, implementing app registration, register apps using Microsoft Intro ID. So other topics are for your homework. You have to complete that along with the homework lab activities. So for the labs, here we have these different kind of like these labs like application access policies, implement access management for applications. And if you're interested, you can go for GitHub that I was explaining, SC300 GitHub. Go for first link, click on instructions, and here we have lots of labs related to these different activities. So if you have trial license, you can go for completing these exercises as well to have more understanding. It's very simple. Click on any, and you'll see step-by-step guidance how you can configure these settings. Like this is for SSPR. How to implement that. You can find this here. But you should have a kind of trial account with you that maybe you have from your organization, or if you have received any lab from Microsoft, you can perform these activities there as well. Along with what activities are there already. So these are different kind of components, different kind of discussions, what we see here. So that's all for today. We have covered 3 days so far, 3 days agenda, and we have still 2 days remaining. That is day 4 and day 5. And that is going to be very interesting because in day 4, we talk about what comes in entitlement management, what we have in privileged identity management. These are very interesting topics. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for your patience. Keep learning. And don't forget to join our other 2 days session in this series. So keep learning, keep exploring the topics, keep exploring the labs, and definitely if you are going to cover all these, I'm pretty much sure you will be very confident if you want to appear in exam. So once again, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'll see you guys in another 2 days session. For now, have a nice rest of the day and bye-bye.
Technology is moving fast. Closing the skills gap can help your team optimize and stay focused on what's ahead, rather than constantly playing tech catch-up. That's why it's important to keep Microsoft certifications active. Here's everything you need to know about renewing your team's certifications. We have introduced a free certification renewal process for role-based and specialty certifications to help you stay current with skills you need to remain up to date in your job role. Please note that the fundamentals certifications do not expire. In order to renew, you don't need to schedule and take an exam through Pearson VUE. Assessments are shorter than the exam. We encourage you to renew early, as soon as you are eligible. You won't lose time by renewing early, as the extension date is not based on the date that you choose to renew, but 1 year from certification expiration date. To access renewal assessment, you need to connect your certification profile to your Microsoft Learn profile only the first time. Once connected, you don't need to repeat this step in future to access renewal assessments. You can take the assessment as many times as you need. But after the second try, you will need to wait at least 24 hours before your next attempt. Embracing a growth mindset and the need for continuous learning can help you optimize and successfully perform in job roles. With a renewed Microsoft certification, globally recognized and industry-endorsed evidence of mastered real-world skills, you will also be able to demonstrate your proficiency in keeping pace with technology.